I'm Megan Voss, Senior Project Manager for Sales Enablement at Columbus McKinnon, and I'd like to welcome you to our Tech Talk, Making the CMCO Customer Portal Work for You. This is the second in a new series of educational webinars that dive deep into the Columbus McKinnon products and platforms you use every day. Our presenter today is Vander Linden, Director of Digital Customer Experience for Columbus McKinnon. During the webinar today, your phone lines will be muted. However, there will be a question and answer opportunity at the end of the webinar. To submit your questions, please type them into the GoToWebinar system questions pane at any time. Now I'll turn it over to John to begin. John?
Thanks, Megan. So today we're going to cover a variety of topics. We're going to go over some of the aspects of the end user RFQ. This is something that not everybody utilizes, but more and more people have been asking me about it. So I thought we would cover this, including how we get your logo on the top of the forms, how we can include your terms and conditions, as well as that ever confusing gross margin. We'll also cover a few things that'll make you a lot more efficient, including things like my preferences, some of the favorites, templates, which will really enable you to be able to customize some of the configurations that you have. Then finally, we'll cover a couple of quick things, including freight allowed, and have some time for some question and answers. And we'll have a poll or two in between as well to break up the having to listen to me. So let's start with the reminder. Last month's Tech Talks, which was the introductory portion of this, is actually out there right now. I've got this in both a hyperlink as well as the menu form from Megan there. As well, you can go right into the customer portal under the resources section, and we have a whole bunch of portal training webinars. What we've done is we've got things like last section, which was, 40 minutes, but then we've also previously broken some of those sections up into 2 and 3 minute bite-sized chunks so that you don't have to listen to the whole thing. You can get right to the meat of it, like how do I do a bulk upload, or in this particular case, how do I set my gross margin? And you'll be able to see these in 2 and 3 minute chunks, just as a friendly reminder. So let's start right off with this end user RFQ and how to add your logo in. What you're going to find is that in many cases, the RFQ items are going to be in the My Preferences section. So if you see where I've got highlighted here, you've got a person icon in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. You'll click on that, and then you'll click on My Preferences. And when you do that, you'll scroll about halfway down the page, and you're going to find this section here with image settings. You're going to be able to come in here, choose an image. And in this particular case, you can see that I had the Unified Industries logo. I've always wanted to work for an enclosed track manufacturer. So I put it in there, and it's going to take JPEGs and bitmaps and PNGs. And I think there's about 8 different formats that it'll take. The one thing I'm going to recommend, though, for the best results, I want your logo to pop more than the CMCO logo here. So when you do this, it's always best to trim off any excess. So if you've got like white padding around your logo, try to remove that, especially in the north-south direction. As you know, the east-west is a little less important, but certainly up and down, you're going to want to trim that off, because then your logo will get bigger and it'll appear, like I said, on the top of all of your quotes. And you'll see that in just a second as we go through this. The second thing is to enter your terms and conditions. Again, this is for the end user RFQ. So what we are enabling you to do here is, this is the quote you're going to present to your customer. Okay, so we want your logo prominent, and instead of the Columbus McKinnon terms and conditions, we want to make sure that you can add your own terms and conditions. So a couple different things. You can copy and paste it. You get to it the same way you did the logo. You go into the person icon, you hit My Preferences. Right below the logo is going to be the terms and conditions. You are likely going to need to add a few carriage returns, and currently the bolding and underline is not supported. I've done a few of these for different people, and generally speaking, I'm just double carriage returning, and it looks pretty good. And again, these are going to appear right at the end of all of your end user quote forms. And then finally, the gross margin. You'll likely see, and we talked about this in the first section, that you can create your own gross margin. But what I want to make sure people see is that on any individual quote, you can always override this, but you don't want to override every single line item on every quote form that you have. So generally speaking, when I'm doing this, and what I recommend is find whatever is right for you. So if you go to the My Preferences, you're going to find this target down here. I think we initially have it set up as a value that will almost force you to change it so that you can ask questions and see that it's there. I think generally speaking, the default is a margin of 5%, knowing full well that no one will leave it at 5%. You'll go out of business if you try to only get a 5% margin. I put my own target margin here of 20%, but again, as a reminder, on any single line item that you have in there, you'll be able to go and change that up so that if you want line 2 to have a 25% gross margin, you can do that. And essentially what this is going to do, it's going to take your price, so your list price, it's going to show that on the quote form, and instead of the net price that we're charging you, it's going to determine what you need to charge your customer, rounded to the nearest $10, so that you can make a minimum of the 20% or whatever it is that you would request it here. One additional thing that you can do is you can actually personalize your quote. So if you come into here as you're creating the quote, you've probably seen it 100 times and just not realized that it takes you here. Right above the products, when you're creating your quote, is this lead information. Internal comments here, these are just for you. So if you just want to give yourself a reminder, hey, I want to be sure to remember to come back later on and quote a radio on this instead of a pendant, you can do that. No one's ever going to see that. These comments, though, are going to appear on the quote form. So you can see here I wrote, these appear on the quote form, have a nice day. I even filled out my own information here, so maybe I was going to create this quote and sell it to myself. So I can fill this in advance so that my customer's name is appearing on the quote form. So coming together, you can kind of see this. So I was logged in as Bill. Okay, so Bill is a Unified Industries customer service rep. All right, created this logo here. So the logo is appearing really, nice and big at the top of here. The end customer, that's me, is showing up because I added all of that information. And then because I wanted 20% on here, it's rounding it up to the nearest $10 so that I can make 20% on this particular Lodestar. And again, here's the comments. As I mentioned before, it said, have a nice day. These appear on the quote form. And then the terms of sales are right out of that document that I copy and pasted into here. So every single one of these things ends up showing up here. I want to point out too that when you actually have this displayed in your Adobe Acrobat, the name of the quote is going to be end_user_RFQ_, in this particular case, it would be C0332355. I bring that to your attention because occasionally someone will hit the wrong button when they're trying to print this, because the channel partner RFQ and the end user RFQ buttons are right next to each other. And occasionally someone will say, John, I've got a 45% discount, not a 40% discount, or certainly not a 40.07% discount. And they'll think that Compass is giving them the wrong discount. In reality, it's possible that maybe you've actually printed the end user RFQ when you were looking for the channel partner discount. So just be aware of that. And one of the telltale signs is your discount isn't an even number. And another one is your net price is an even number. So, this is rounded to that nearest $10, as I mentioned before. So that's one of the telltale signs of being able to see that. So at this point, we'll stop and give you an opportunity for some polls.
Thanks, John. Okay, let's take a look at our polls here. All right, we're going to be asking you on a scale of 1, will not use, to 5, definitely will use. How likely are you to use the following features? So the first one, on a scale of 1 to 5, how likely are you to add a logo? So if you can go ahead and make your selection, and I'll give you a few moments to do that. Again, on a scale of from 1, will not use, to 5, definitely will use, how likely are you to add a logo? Still got a few answers trickling in, so I'll give you another moment. All right, let's take a look at those responses. All right, looks like there's a pretty wide range here with about a third of you saying you definitely will use and moving down from there. So any comment on those results, John?
No, I'm glad that people want to use that. I think it's one of all the 3 of the things that we'll be asking you here. I think it's the one that gets utilized the most and the one I get asked about the most.
Great. Let's go on to the next poll. Again, on a scale of 1 to 5, how likely are you to add your terms of sale? And again, I'll give you a few moments to answer this. I think it looks like we're going to have a different spread from the first question. Again, give you a few moments to answer. On a scale of 1, will not use, to 5, definitely will use, how likely are you to add your terms of sale? All right, let's take a look at those responses. And we've got a pretty even spread from 1 to 4, with just a few people saying they definitely will use, adding your terms of sale. So any thoughts on that, John?
Yeah, I think that the easier we make this for people, including allowing some formatting, I think this will hopefully get a little bit more use, because I think it's a nice tool, but a little generic when you can't bold and underline some things. So I can understand that for sure.
A little formatting will help. Okay, sounds good. And then we'll move on to our last poll. All right, on a scale of 1 to 5, how likely are you to set your gross margin? All right. Oh, the answers are coming in quickly here. Again, to the question, on a scale of 1, will not use, to 5, will definitely use, how likely are you to set your gross margin? All right. We've got a pretty even spread on this one. Let's take a look at the results, John. We've got, yeah, as I said, a pretty even spread between 1 and 5.
Yeah, the only thing I would say here, Megan, is that for anybody that doesn't want to use it, and I totally get it, you may want to click on that button where it says ignore, and that way you won't have that 5% showing up at the top of your quote form, which would, you know, obviously make it a little bit confusing if you're not going to use that. So that may be a helpful hint to click on the My Preferences, go in there and hit the ignore gross margin. I think you'll find that it's a little bit easier from there.
Good tip, John. Okay, well, back to your presentation.
Thank you, Megan. So a couple additional things that you can find in the My Preferences tab. One is to see if you can't simplify your freight billing. So one of the things that I recommend to people is that you can always actually fill in, for instance, a UPS account number. If the only thing that you're sending collect is UPS, I would certainly click on collect and fill in your account number there, and then hit save after you do that, and now your UPS number is in there, so that should you choose to send it UPS and you don't want our default to show up, why then your collect a number would be there. A couple other things that I would recommend is clicking on the ship partial order and the ship early if possible. We sometimes have a wide spread of different lead times, and what I would hate is we normally have two ways that we ship items. One is we optimize it for you based on fewest number of shipments, and the other one is we optimize it based on you getting things as fast as you can. Obviously, fewest number of shipments would be we hold everything until it's all there, and if you happen to have one of our longer lead time items, maybe you have a Chester product in there. You know, the Chester hand chain hoist can take a while to manufacture. I would hate to have the rest of your order held up because you couldn't even schedule it, the remainder of the order based on that. So generally speaking, I advise people to click these two into My Preferences. You still have the ability to ship them all together when you go do checkout, but this also gives you the ability to click on a button that says only or ship everything as soon as you get it. And especially when you have the freight allowed, I would recommend doing that. If we're paying the freight for you, you might as well get it as soon as we have it. A couple of additional items. One of the things that people have asked for is this ability to actually highlight products that are used quite a bit. So you can see here, I was once on a sales call where somebody told me, John, you know, I'm tired of buying your keys. How about you sell me something that would stop the key from falling out to begin with? And I was told that this is the part that does that. I also know that I was never going to either remember that part or I was going to forget to quote it the next time I was asked. So for me, I use this as a reminder, but other people do this for products that are very, very common to them. And so what you do is you find it, you don't even have to add it to your cart. And anytime you see this little yellow star, or it's just a star, you click on it, it'll highlight itself. And then what's going to happen is now above all of your Compass tiles on that main screen and also on the initial display, you're going to find that you'll have this product right underneath of My Favorites. I believe we allow up to 10 favorites, and it's very, very easy to both remove those as well. So if you click on the View All button, it's going to take you to a list of all of your favorites, and you can just click on the garbage can icon, and then you'll be taken right out of there. We have customers that use quite a bit of this just because they have, you know, instead of trying to go 3 levels deep to find their product, or instead of trying to use the search button for a long part number, they'll just put this into the favorites and they'll be able to just add it to their cart instantly. One of our final topics here is the use of templates. This is a little bit different and a little bit trickier, so I want to take a minute to showcase how this works. So you can come in here and you'll see that I did a couple things that are maybe a little less standard, right? Certainly 10 feet is our standard lift, and usually people are using 460 volts, not 230 volts for an operating voltage. And so what you can do, and you can do this at any point in the quote, it does not have to be a complete one. In this particular case, I've got a complete quote. You can see that it's green, but you click on this Save Template button here, and it's going to pop up a little display box here. It's going to allow you to name the template. It's also going to allow you to describe that template so that later on you're able to recognize what that is. So in this particular case, you can see I called it the JBL Super Awesome Lodestar NH. And now anytime I go to search for it, you know, so I'm looking for the word awesome, it's going to show up in my templates. I can click on that button and it's going to start all the way with that hook mounted, half metric ton, 12 foot of lift, 230 volt operating voltage, it's going to have all of these questions already filled in for me, and I won't have to do that. So this is a really good way. We've got a couple customers out there that do repeat business on what I would consider to be a non-standard part number. So we don't have a SKU for it at Columbus McKinnon, but the customers themselves have decided that they have a SKU because they order it frequently enough, maybe a couple times a month. We've got multiple customers that actually utilize this as their means of ordering that, because now they can actually put in their own part number here, search for it, and it comes up as a template instead of as a SKU. The other thing that I've found is we have some customers, this is particularly true in the entertainment business, but I'm sure there's things you can find in the industrial settings as well. So one of our entertainment customers sells into Disney, and Disney has a set of safety requirements that go beyond what the standard requirements are. So instead of filling in the capacity and the lift and everything else, this particular customer has said, I'm going to call this the Disney hoist, and he fills in all of the safety requirements first, and then every single hoist after that, when he adds in the capacity and the lift and the speed and the voltage, already has those selections made for him so that he doesn't forget. So this is another really good use of that whole concept of a template. So it's something that I know a lot of customers don't even see up there, because usually you're either resetting or you're hitting the download button so that you can go through and get whatever resources you need out of here. But right to the right of that is this save template, which can, like I said, save quite a bit of time for you. So our next topic here is the freight allowed. This is again something that we've added in the last few years here. We have listed all of the products that qualify for this. And so what we've done is, as you go through and you click on different buttons here, this is either going to be grayed out, or it's going to allow you to select it. And if you hover over it, like I have my mouse here, it's going to tell you why. Some of the common reasons are, you didn't hit the 7,500 minimum. Another common reason is that certain brands do not participate in this. So I did have somebody put in a $14,000 order. All but one part number was in there, and the part number that wasn't was a small, I think it was $100 Magnetek part. And by clicking on that button, or by hovering over that question mark, what it told them is hey, the only reason this isn't here is because of this one Magnetek part. And what they chose to do was remove that one from the order, get the free freight on the the $12,000, and then place a second order for the one Magnetek part that was only $100, and it was probably a $6 UPS charge. So be aware that that's there. Be aware that it can help you save a lot of money and allow us to pay for the freight. Again, you hover over this, a couple different things. It is only good for certain products, and Magnetek, Chester, and I believe Unified are not qualified for that. It does require a $7,500 minimum order, and it also requires you to use Best Way. But again, this is a great way to save a fair amount of money, is to use that freight allowed. So with that, I will turn it over to you guys for any questions that you may have.
Thanks, John. So we have a few questions that have come in so far. Just a reminder, you can type your questions into the GoToWebinar question pane. The first question that we have here is, can you get spare part pricing directly from the portal?
Yes, you can. So any of those spare parts, if you're able to either type it into the search bar, you can get it there. You can also do it under Tools Price Inquiry, and you will find that your spare parts pricing will be in there as well.
Thanks, John. Our next question, can you show an example of both versions of the scheduling from your presentation?
Absolutely. So let me switch over to my, so here is where you would start. I'm going to go into one of my quotes. Now maybe I'll go and create a quick quote. I thought I'd save that one. I'm sorry. I'll use my stopper screw kit. You can see all I have to do is add that to the cart. This is in stock, so it's 3 business days. So now I'm purposely going to find something that is a little bit beyond 3 business days. So let's go into one of my conductor bar pieces. Hopefully I can find something that's out there. All right, here we go. Here's one that's 36 days. Let's add that to my cart. I'm going to place my order. Couple different things. One, this is again where you can see it's telling me why, you know, in this particular case, no $7,500 and these 2 part numbers because they're Magnetek don't qualify for the free freight. But here, as soon as I hit on the prepay and add, here's where you can see how those 2 things work. Remember, the one was in stock and could have been shipped in 3 days, but because the other one had, I think it was 36 days on it, it's not letting me schedule the entire order until February 2nd. However, if I instead, by clicking on the ship partial and ship early if possible, click on populate each line with the best ship date, now I'm going to get the first line item here in 3 business days and the second one in 36 business days. So it's a significant savings that you can have for yourself if you go back in and do click on that button. Good question, though.
Thanks, John. Yeah, that is an interesting feature. All right, I just have one more question here, so I'll just remind everyone, if you do have a question for John, please put that into the questions pane. And the last question listed here are, what are the use cases for templates?
So what we find people are using it for is the first part for sure is when you have something that is slightly non-standard, but it's standard for one of your customers. So I see that a lot where maybe they're into a factory with 12-foot of lift or 13-foot of lift or something that's not the Columbus McKinnon standard, but it's a standard for whatever end user they have. And so people use it a lot there. And then, as I mentioned, that Disney case was a great example where they're requiring certain features on hoists that perhaps are not standard for us. And they want to make sure that even if they're not saving it as a fully completed hoist, that they don't forget to add those options later on.
Thanks, John. Well, that was the last question that we had. So I'm going to ask you to go back to your presentation and bring up the slide with your contact information.
Absolutely.
Great, thank you. Great. Well, as you can see, John's contact information is right there. So feel free to contact him if you do have any further questions. And that's going to conclude our webinar for today. We certainly hope you found this Tech Talk useful. Please take just a moment to complete the brief survey that will pop up as the webinar closes. Your feedback will help us plan future Tech Talks and other training. We will be sending out more information on upcoming Tech Talks in the new year, so keep an eye out for that. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today, and thank you, John.
Thanks you very much, Megan, and thanks everybody for attending. I hope you all have a great weekend.